It was early morning when I heard loud knocking on the door. I hurried to open it, and there she stood, my mother-in-law, arms crossed, looking impatient. "Shelley, I've made up my mind," she declared. "I'm moving in with you and Sean." My heart sank. This wasn't a request, it was an announcement. Sean, my husband, stood behind me, silent as always when his mother spoke. "Mom, we need to discuss this first," he muttered, but she cut him off. "There's nothing to discuss. I have nowhere else to go, so I'm moving in." My stomach twisted with dread. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "We don't have enough space," I argued. "You need to find another solution." She scoffed, waving off my words. "Nonsense, I don't need much space. I'll take the living room." I looked at Sean, silently pleading for his support, but he just looked away. "We'll figure something out," he mumbled. I clenched my jaw. I knew exactly what that meant. He would give in to her demands, like always. If I didn't stop this now, she would take control of our lives, and I would lose everything I worked for. That night, Sean finally admitted the truth. "Mom is in serious debt," he confessed. "She spent all the money Dad left behind. Now she's losing her house." My chest tightened. I had always known she was careless with money, but this was worse than I imagined. "So now she wants to drag us down with her?" I asked, my voice sharp. "Shelley, she's my mother. I can't just abandon her," he said softly. I exhaled. "We can help her find a place, but she's not moving in." He nodded weakly, but I knew he wouldn't fight her. He never did. The next day, I arrived at my salon and stopped in shock. My mother-in-law was lying on one of the treatment beds, inspecting it like a customer. Sean stood beside her, looking uncomfortable. "What's going on?" I demanded. She smiled smugly. "I've decided this is where I'll live. It's private and there's enough space." My heart pounded. "This is my business, not a home." I turned to Sean. "You're allowing this?" He shifted awkwardly. "Mom has no other options." I could barely breathe. If word got out that someone was living in my salon, my reputation would be ruined. I tried to stay calm. "You can't live here. It's illegal," I stated firmly. My mother-in-law waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, relax. No one will know." She started moving furniture, acting like she already owned the place. I turned to Sean, hoping he would finally stand up to her, but he just looked down. "If you don't leave, I'll call the police," I warned. For a brief moment, she hesitated. Then she scoffed. "Fine. We'll leave for now. But this isn't over." I knew she meant it. This was just the beginning of a battle I hadn't prepared for. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Sean had barely spoken since we got home. "You need to stop this," I whispered. He sighed. "She's my mother. What do you expect me to do?" My hands clenched into fists. "I expect you to protect our life, our home, my business." He stayed silent. I realized then that he would never fight for me. If I wanted to save myself, I had to act alone. I picked up my phone and called the one person I knew could help, my father. He was the only one who could stop this. The next morning, just as I feared, a moving truck pulled up in front of my salon. My mother-in-law was outside, directing workers to unload furniture. My heart raced. I ran out, blocking their way. "Stop! You can't do this!" The workers looked confused but continued. Suddenly, another car pulled up, a sleek black luxury car. My father stepped out, adjusting his suit. "What's going on here?" he asked in a calm but firm voice. My mother-in-law turned, ready to argue, until she saw him. Her face paled. "Who are you?" she demanded. He smirked. "I'm Shelley's father." My father walked forward, his presence filling the space. "This building belongs to me," he said. "You have no right to be here." My mother-in-law gasped. "That's not true. This is a family issue." My father's eyes darkened. "No, this is business, and you are trespassing." Sean swallowed hard, stepping back. "Sean," my father said. "Did you approve this?" Sean stuttered. I didn't know she would go this far." My mother-in-law grabbed his arm. "Don't listen to him. We have every right." But she was losing confidence. My father pulled out a document. The lease is terminated, effective now. I folded my arms. You need to leave. Immediately. My mother-in-law turned red. You can't do this. My father smiled coldly. I just did. She turned to Sean, expecting him to fight for her. He just stood there, helpless. She clenched her fists. This isn't over. But deep down we all knew. It was. That night, I packed my bags. I had already spoken to my father and the apartment lease was terminated. Sean called, his voice shaking. Where are you? I took a deep breath. I'm leaving. He didn't argue. He just whispered, I understand. And I knew that. In the end, he had always chosen his mother over me. I walked out without looking back. Days later, I heard that Sean and his mother had moved to a distant relative's house. He quit his job to help her pay off debts. Meanwhile, I focused on my business. Without the stress of my marriage, my salon flourished. Customers noticed the difference. I was finally free. For years, I had fought to keep my life together. Now I realized I had been fighting the wrong battle. My business thrived, and I found peace. My mother-in-law had lost everything, and Sean was left struggling in her shadow. But I had won. One day, as I locked up my salon, I saw someone standing outside. Sean. He looked thinner, more tired. Our eyes met, and he hesitated. Shelley, he said quietly. I stayed silent, waiting. I made a mistake, he admitted, but I had nothing left to give. I smiled sadly. I hope you're doing okay, Sean. He nodded, looking down. Are you happy? He asked. I took a deep breath. For the first time in years, yes. He gave a weak smile. That's good. Then he walked away. That was the last time I saw him. I had once wished he would stand up for me, but now I realized I didn't need him. I had built a life on my own. Now, my salon is more successful than ever. I help people find confidence, just like I once needed. My past no longer haunts me. It only reminds me of how far I've come. And as I move forward, I know one thing for sure. I will never let anyone take control of my life again.